Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth, everyone who is here and present. Thank you for joining us today for our public work session here on February 9th. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our city staff who is here with us. Thank you all for being here and the citizens joining us here in the work session. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Stephen Carter, our city manager, interim city attorney, Mr. Derek Challenger, and of course, Ms. White, Rebecca White, our city clerk. Of course. So go ahead and ask Ms. White to please call the roll. Oh, and also, Mr. Edwards. My eyes didn't see you.
City assessment.
Our city assessment. My God. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Edwards. Thank you for reminding me, Ms. White.
You're welcome.
And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant. Present. Dr. Dodson.
Here.
Mr. Hugel.
Present.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Ms. Thomas. Here. Mr. Tillage.
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. We only have one item on the agenda this evening, and that is a review of an unsolicited proposal for a new city hall and parking garage. Got quite a few people in. Assuming y'all can't see me. All right, tonight's presentation is just informational. There's no requirement or an ask of any decision to be made this evening. This is just information so that you and our citizens be aware of what this process is, what we're doing. One of the things I really hope to make sure I explain tonight is what this is and what this is not. Okay. This is a statutory process, so we have rules about how this goes along. Right? And what I will be explaining is what those rules are, where we are in the process, and what is the expectation in the coming weeks. I want to be very clear that this is an evaluation exercise. That's really what we're doing today. So it's not a foregone conclusion that anything will happen. One of the values of the process that we're in is that this council, this city, the leadership of the city remain in full control of the whole process. So we will, as we walk through this, you'll see where there are decision points all along the way where you get to this determine yay and nay, we move or we don't move. So there's no forcing you into something or again, no foregone conclusions about how anything will proceed. All right, first question, what exactly is a PPEA? PPEA stands for the Public-Private Education and Infrastructure Act. This is a Virginia statute that allows local governments to consider alternate delivery methods for public facilities. It does not eliminate public control, and it does not bypass the transparency required for such an endeavor. What it does is allow the city to test whether a public-private partnership using a private sector team can deliver a facility faster, with clearer costs, clearer certainties, and with certain construction risk that gets shifted away from taxpayers for a while. One of the most important things to realize is that the PPEA, the way the statute is built, it provides options at every stage. So if at any point the proposal no longer makes sense for the city of Portsmouth, the council can stop that process. The perception may be that you don't have control, and I want to make sure as we talk about this tonight that I point out the places where you're actually controlling this process. We have a couple, or actually more than a couple, a few entities from our area that has made this proposal. It was submitted by a team that calls itself RHMCN. But one thing I do want to emphasize is that no one in the city selected this team. It was an unsolicited submission, meaning we were not advertising, we were not engaged, we were not in any way searching for a partner, but somebody recognized the value in partnering with us and made an unsolicited proposal to us. This team includes Ripley Heatwall as the lead developer, MEB as the general contractor, but also Clark Nexon as the architect and engineer. All three of these have substantial experience in Portsmouth and with other public-private partnerships. Tonight is not an endorsement of this team, it's simply an acknowledgement that they are qualified enough to warrant our evaluation. So, why was this team selected? Again, they were not selected. It was an unsolicited proposal. Because I've had that question, that's the reason I stated it that way. But they were not selected. This is an unsolicited proposal. And you'll see a little bit later, one of the portions of the statute required that although we got an unsolicited proposal, we made a vehicle available for anybody else that wanted to propose also to participate. So what are we talking about? We're talking about actually rebuild. It's actually a rebuild because we're not going to do anything with the building here. We're going to leave the building as it stands and build a substantially a new building and a new parking deck. The proposal suggests City Hall to be owned by the city and built on a property kind of to the backside of the public library between King and Court Streets, what is or was the Court Street garage that is now just a surface parking lot. So not very far from here, we stay in the downtown area, which is a good thing for our local downtown businesses so that the occupants of this building continue to patronize those areas. The vision includes three components: a city hall, a replacement garage, and then a public plaza. That's the way it is proposed today. Understand this is a conceptual site plan. It is absolutely not a final layout. No final design decisions have been made, and the council will have an opportunity to see the final, not just the proposed version of this as we move forward. Why did we choose this site? It's central, city-owned. It is, again, in the downtown area, still and a way to support our local businesses. And it is, again, a site that the city already owns the property to. This is a concept of what a proposed city hall and parking garage would look like. The vision right now is the area between the two buildings is an extension of the corridor that runs down right in front of the Children's Museum. This is another view of that same facility. So what's the benefit of doing this? Well, one of the biggest benefits is one of the long-term processes that we have talked about, and that is opening up or unlocking our waterfront. We already have on Crawford Bay a proposal, or not a proposal, a process that we're going through to kind of reinvigorate that area. This is another area. Think about what's happening around us right now. We have a vacant building on one side that's been vacant for a few years now. We have another vacant building that's in the process of being demoed. So if we remain here, or we're sitting between two vacant buildings, which makes trying to develop that area not really feasible because you have an occupied structure right in the middle of all of it. This site represents some of the most valuable real estate that the city has today, and it could allow our future councils to consider development options that could expand our tax base, improve our public access, and even strengthen tourism in this area. Again, no decision about this site is what I'm asking you to make a decision on tonight. This is just information so that you have that as a tool as we move forward and you get an opportunity to make some other decisions. One assumption that I do want to make sure that I uncover is that the waterfront development will not pay for the new city hall. Think of it this way. Before we can develop the land that the city hall currently sits on, we have to be able to vacate the land that current city hall sits on. In order to vacate the land that the current city hall sits on, we have to already have a new city hall to move into. So the actual current city hall and the waterfront property would not be the mechanism we use as financing or funding for the new city hall. However, because one of the options that we have is, and we'll talk a little bit about this, a couple of different financing options. Either way, if we can get new development here, that would absolutely help in the long-term financing of a new city hall. But I want to make absolutely sure that I mention to you that as it stands today, that anything that's going to happen here is not considered in how we're moving that process forward. One of the questions that always comes up is, why not renovate? Well, renovation is an alternative, but we've outgrown the building that we're in. When we moved into this building, there was a lot less people that we have in the building than there is today. Our current city hall has many documented deficiencies relating to our security, our accessibility, the space configurations for our offices and our personnel. Most importantly, our life cycle systems, such as our HVAC, our elevators. Just the maintenance of the building itself is becoming more and more of an issue. I'm finding out, or I'm discovering, I'll say it that way, more and more each day of some of the deficiencies that need to be addressed in this building because of deferred maintenance that didn't take place when it should have taken place. So there are systems that are breaking that we have to fix immediately because this is a public building, so we have to be open. So we don't have the luxury now of deferred some of those things that break to sometime later. So when something breaks, we have to immediately, even though those things aren't really budgeted right now, we have to immediately take consideration and get those items repaired so that the building remains open and available to the public. Now, one of of the things I do want to mention before I move on is whether we pursue a new facility or not, those issues I'm talking about don't go away. We still have to deal with those issues. All right. As we talk through the things this evening, if I was to say what I think is one of the most important things that we take away is this slide. And the reason I think this is really most important because it talks about what this actually is and what this actually is not. This is a conceptual, unsolicited PPEA proposal. It's an opportunity to do an evaluation of that proposal and the due diligence around determining whether or not that's a valuable move for the city. It's a request to consider entering into an interim agreement to gather more and better information about what this will actually look like as it moves forward. This is not a final design. What you see as those concepts may or may not actually end up being the actual construction that's done. That will be determined during that interim agreement period. This, what we have tonight, although I will talk about a price, is not a guaranteed price as of yet. The interim agreement work is designed to get to the point where we know exactly what that price will be. Tonight, or even as we move forward, it's not the time that I will ask this body to make a decision on financing or debt. I don't have enough information about what the actual structure will turn out to be, and we still have several meetings with our financial advisors and our finance teams to determine what the actual financing will look like and what we will be willing to bring back to you as a consideration for debt. This is not a commitment tonight to move City Hall. This is, again, strictly informational so that you and the public knows what's happening as we try to be as transparent through this process as we possibly can. And although we talked about what this waterfront can look like, we're not asking you to make a decision on that tonight. So this is an opportunity to evaluate further an unsolicited proposal. It is not a commitment to do anything. So where are we in the process? We were required, once we got the proposal, to evaluate the proposal, let the team know whether or not we accepted the proposal. We've done that. We were required to advertise to the general public and any other potential submitters that we have a proposal. This is a window that's open for anybody else that want to make a proposal to bring us those proposals, and we will evaluate all those proposals equally. We've done that. What we're asking now is to schedule a public hearing, because one of the rules says before we can enter into an interim agreement, we have to have a public hearing, allow the public to voice their opinions about what we're doing, and then wait at least 30 days after that before we can actually make it, enter into that interim agreement. That's where we are now. We're at the point where we're willing, I'm asking to be able to schedule that public hearing. The date that we have set for that is March the 10th. And at that public hearing, allow the public to voice whatever opinions they have about this. Then you make a decision whether or not you are willing to allow us to move forward with pursuing that interim agreement. And again, the interim agreement, I forgot to slide on this, maybe the next one. That interim agreement is where the piece that I call it two things. One is our homework session. That's where we go away, work with the developers to kind of come up with some real numbers, because we've looked at the design, we've kind of figured out what we need in there, how it needs to be structured. They go away and they'll create what's called a 35% design drawing, meaning they worked on the design of that building up to the point where they can accurately determine what the cost is going to be. They do the preliminary civil engineering. They do all the other kind of legwork things that would need to be done if anybody built a building on that site. So one of the things I want to make sure that we do is understand that an interim agreement is not the final agreement. Even after we do the interim agreement and we get all the information that I call the homework piece, there's still another thing that I'll have to bring back to you and say, hey guys, this is all the work that we've done. This is what the real numbers are now. This is how we're going to finance this. This is the dates. This is the timeline. This is everything that we can figure out about how to build this building. Are you willing to move forward? So even after this, there's still another checkpoint that you guys will have an opportunity to scrutinize, ask every question that you can think of, and get comfortable that we're moving in the right direction. Again, the voice of our community matters. We want to make sure that everyone knows that March the 10th is the date for the public hearing and the decision for the council to decide whether or not we want to move forward with that interim agreement. That interim agreement is a safety gate. It is an approach that means the city proceeds in stages with defined exit points. Each gate requires our council to authorize moving forward. This protects the city from being locked into something that we really don't want to be locked into, because again, there's several exit ramps on this road. The interim agreement will get you a 35% architectural design and 100% engineering design. We'll do our due diligence around what's required, what we want to have there. We'll do all the legwork to kind of figure out what the financial verifications are of what we're going to propose to you as a financial vehicle. We consider that piece a low risk for our council or low risk for our city, because at that point we get all that information back. You still have to make a decision. Yes, this is something we want to do, or no, this is not something that we want to do. If that is something that we want to do, we'll start working on what's called a comprehensive agreement. That is going to be the final phase of that. That's where we actually put the pen to paper that says, yes, we want to build a city hall, and we've agreed on what it's going to look like, we've agreed on where it is, we've agreed on what the finances is going to be, we've agreed on what the cost is going to be. We're ready to move forward. So again, even after we do the interim agreement, there's still another step that we have to come back to, explain to you guys all the homework that we did about the interim on the interim agreement, or that resulted from the interim agreement, I'll say. And then there's that final checkpoint that says, yes, we're ready, or no, we're not. Financing. You'll see in the proposal, there's a proposal to suggest a not-for-profit financing model where tax-exempt bonds are issued by a third party and the city leases the facility. I want to make sure that you realize that this is an option, it's not the only option. It does not count as general obligation bond debt, but as far as our rating agencies are concerned, it's still debt. All right, so that it helps, but it doesn't alleviate debt. Okay, because if you enter into what we would call a long-term lease based on the proposed option, our rating agencies are still going to look at us as carrying that debt. But again, we don't have to go with the model that's proposed. One of the part of that due diligence process is working with our financial advisors, working with our financial teams to understand what is the most efficient, cost-effective vehicle for our city. The current order of magnitude is that all of these things that we're talking about now is conceptual until we get till that 35% design, and then we start validating pricing. The number that we have up here, the 86 million, does not include the financing vehicle piece of this. So the total number is more like 93. That is a big number, right? But it's going to be a big number whether we do it one way or the other. It's going to cost somewhere in that neighborhood to build a modern facility with the size of garage that's necessary. Now, that may not actually be the number we end up with, because again, that due diligence piece has not taken place. This is just a rough estimate of what we think is going to be based on what we know about pricing today. Again, everything that we're looking at is a range, but not a commitment. The reason I keep saying that is because I think that's really important for our council and for our citizens to know. We're talking about a lot of things here, but none of it is a commitment at this point. The only commitment that we're making at this point is whether or not we want to pursue evaluating this further. All right, so we're asking for the March 10th public hearing. Once we have that, we're going to ask for the council to make a decision on whether or not we want to enter into the negotiation period for creating an interim agreement. There will not be an interim agreement available at the time that we make the decision to pursue this. This is just a decision to pursue it. Then we will start working on what the actual interim agreement will be. And then we'll bring that back to you so that you can approve the interim agreement. Remember, the March 10th meeting, the law says we cannot enter into any kind of agreement at least until 30 days have passed after that meeting. So that's when we'll go away and we'll work on what that interim agreement is going to look like, so that when we come back, optimistically it will be 30 days, but I think it'll be more like 90 to 120 days to come back to you and say, okay, this is the agreement, or do you think it's okay? And we'll explain all the pieces of it so that you'll be well aware. Now, during that time, what I will ask you is, every question that you got about anything that's concerning this, ask. That is actually the time to do it. While we're going through that process, we will get you every answer. We'll respond to you in writing it every time, so that you have a record of what the process is, the questions that's been asked, and what those responses are. But again, at that point, yes means we're going to move on and try to work out this interim agreement and get some more details about what the new city hall will actually look like, or no. And if you say no, the process ends. We move back and we continue doing what we're doing today. All right, so absolutely we need to build our future together. I'm hoping that the viewers of this, our city council, those in the audience, those are part of our community that have a stake in saying whatever needs to be said, will come out and join me on March 10th in our city council chambers. We will have that public hearing. All right. One of the final things I want to talk to you about is the risk and the trade-off. Some of the risk is that we're entering into a long-term payment obligation rather. Now, regardless of which financial model we enter into, there's going to be a long-term payment that's going to be required. So we're trying to weigh which one is best, but either one is going to end up with a long-term obligation. What we don't know is what the interest rate and capital market exposure is going to be at that time. I will tell you, and you guys know from experience, whatever it costs today, if we delay that 2 years, it's going to cost more. It won't cost less. You can get the exact same thing, it's going to cost you more. So it is important that we kind of go ahead and move through this. Construction cost is going to escalate, and until we can get a price guarantee, then we're at the mercy of the market. Some of the trade-offs is that we can get faster delivery versus our traditional procurement processes. We have flexibility today that we may not have as we enter into some of these long-term contracts. Our new facility will benefit us, our staff, our citizens, very much more than trying to renovate the facility that we're in. I think that is a losing battle that I'm fighting every day. Don't forget about the potential waterfront value that we would create by having all three of these facilities along this waterfront, of that land anyway, available for redevelopment. I think that's going to be a game changer in the future of Portsmouth. We are always trying to make sure we mitigate as many risks as possible. So the interim agreement with defined exit points is one of those ways that we mitigate this, by having an opportunity to kind of know what this is going to look like in our future, but still not being committed to something that's long-term until we're ready to be committed to something that's long-term. We'll absolutely do a comprehensive financing review. I mean, every option available we'll look at, and collectively with our advisors and our teams, we'll bring back to you the one that we think is the best one and the reason why we think it's the best. We have the opportunity to get public insight into what we're doing. One of the benefits of this is those required public hearings, so that the public can weigh in and have a voice in what is happening with this whole process. And again, we're going to be as transparent as we possibly can to make sure that everybody's aware of what we're doing, when we're doing it, and why we're doing it. There is a small video that I've made about this whole process that I'll share with you guys later, that if we decide to move forward, I'll put on our website, so that and it kind of goes through and explain what a PPA is, what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, where we're going to. It gives some explanations of all of these things, so that those that weren't in attendance tonight or didn't get a chance to hear what this presentation was all about, they get a condensed version of that, so that everybody have a level playing field for what it is that's going on. That's it. So I anticipated that there would be some conversation and questions about this. So I stand ready to try and be responsive to everything that you ask.
Ready, Mr. Edwards? Is that a yes?
I'll defer.
Okay. Vice Mayor Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Page 10 in your presentation, Mr. Manager, and excellent presentation. Did have a question on the competitive window. Can you expound on, you got the word close there?
Yes.
What does close mean in that context?
Close mean we've already done that process. There was a requirement to have an extended period of time where we advertise this, allow anybody else that wants to get in on it to get in on it. We've passed that time. That timeline is closed. So at this point, the opportunity to submit another bid for us to look at has closed.
And that includes unsolicited bids?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
That's a statutory requirement that we do that. There's a statutory time that's placed on it, and we followed it exactly.
Thanks.
Okay. Councilwoman Thomas, you got the floor.
Thank you. For that question, that closed period, so before we received this unsolicited bid,
Yes, ma'am.
we advertised.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so that's my question, then how did anyone else know that we were moving forward with this process and that they did have a chance to bid? Or did we have to wait for an unsolicited proposal to be received first to even start this process, and then therefore we're only giving 45 days? Can you explain that piece just a bit?
I'll try.
Okay.
Okay. What I think I'm hearing you ask is, how did this process even start? Is that?
Yeah, because it sounds like it started with an unsolicited bid proposal.
It did, yes, ma'am.
If we never got the unsolicited proposal, how then would we have started this process? Let me ask it that way.
There's a couple of ways.
Okay.
Because we recognize we need a city hall.
Yes.
Other people recognize we need a city hall. That's how we got an unsolicited proposal. If we didn't get an unsolicited proposal, at some point we're going to have to put a proposal out for people to actually give us a bid for building a city hall. Help me, like my legal counsel here.
The other thing with the add is,
Sir, you have the floor.
thank you, there are guidelines that the city put together back in 2010 that establish it for solicited and unsolicited proposals. So there was already a mechanism out there for that to exist. And one of the people that's listed on here had already done work for the city previously in terms of city programming. So they were very aware of the deficiencies of the city. So they were in a position to know about that. So they solicited a proposal that they thought would be beneficial for the city to do.
Okay.
So they were in the know about this to be able to do an unsolicited proposal.
Okay. Can I follow up on that, sir?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Challenger. So they were in the know to be able to do this unsolicited proposal. So
Yes, ma'am.
one of my concerns, I like the idea of the PPEA. I just, did a little research on it before this meeting, but I am concerned that within this 45-day advertisement period that we might have limited our search in terms of who was in the know and who could have possibly been in this process. Because it sounds like if we go through to the interim agreement, and you said if we go yay or nay, then we stop whatever we're doing, does that bring us back to then putting
We
a
have to do
proposal
our
out?
own proposal, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you. That kind of closes the loop there. I had another question, but I'll pause for a second and move on to the next council person.
Councilman Hugo, sir, and then Vice Mayor Moody, then, actually, we'll go with Councilman Dodson, then Vice Mayor Moody will come in.
Thanks, Mayor. So, Mr. Carter, you started by saying that we need to replace the existing city hall
Yes.
for a host of reasons. And slide 15 refers to programming studies in 2019 and updated in 2025.
Yes.
I assume that those studies have created a list of requirements for us to use to begin the discussions with the submitter of this unsolicited proposal.
I can't say for sure, but I would like to assume that that was the basis for their proposal.
Okay.
They got that study that we had done that said that these are the requirements based on personnel, services, functions, how the building needs to be laid out, and that is the thing that they use to make their first shot at what they think it should look like for us.
Can you make that study available to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Presumably, we've had an assessment done of the building. Do we have a price tag associated with that assessment for, let's just say, for the one person in the city that insists we shouldn't be going down this path, that we should be overhauling the building that we have? Do we have any idea what it would cost to overhaul the building that we have? and acknowledging that, as you said, this building isn't big enough to house everybody. So, we could solve that by building overhauling this building and building a smaller building as an annex, let's say. Do we have some price tag to go do that?
We will, because that's part of that due diligence work that we will bring back to you, so that you have a definite name, not name, but a definite number for why we're proposing a brand new building versus a renovation of an old building.
Okay. And early in the brief, you mentioned that the city owns the building. Isn't it true, though, that during the first 30 years, the builder owns the building and we're leasing the building, and we don't really own the building until the end of the 30-year lease?
Yes, if I said we own the building during that period, I did make a mistake, because that would be a lease unless we finance it ourselves.
Yeah.
If we finance it ourselves, then we would own the building.
Okay. And what about the land that the building's going to sit on? Does that, it suggests, I think, in the proposal that we hand the land over to the people that are going to build.
Right.
And so they own the land as well as the building for that first 30 years?
Well, they won't own the land. We're still on the land, they're on the building. But as part of that process, that is, again, an option, but it's not the only option. So we will kind of look at all of those things, whether or not how much the risk we want to control versus how much we want to pass on. So that would be part of our due diligence.
Okay. And then going back to slide 10. So this is the beginnings of a timeline.
Yes.
But there's a whole bunch of stuff that's got to happen to the right of interim agreement.
Yes.
Including us understanding about how long each of those things is going to take. So evaluation, due diligence, design, pricing, risk, all of those things have to happen after interim agreement before we go to a final agreement.
Yes.
So there's questions that we're going to need to answer in each one of those phases.
Yes.
It would be very helpful, assuming that we decide to go down this path, to lay out that entire timeline with what's got to happen, what are the questions that we need to get answered before we're ready to move on to the next step. And then to also see where the off-ramps are, because as you said, if we're going to be in control, there are times when we've really turned it over to the developer to go do some work for us. But then when the homework comes back to us, then it's our opportunity to say, yeah, keep going, or no, now we've seen enough. So laying out a timeline beyond interim agreement that addresses the rest of this to get us to a final agreement.
Okay.
And roughly, how much time should we be setting aside to do each of those things, so we get a sense? Are we talking about going to a final agreement by the end of this calendar year or the end of next calendar year? My sense of time is faster than probably your sense of time.
I doubt it, but both of ours may be faster in reality. But
Well, mine's definitely faster than reality, using just the discussion we had at the Link Charrette the other night. It's like, wow, 2030 seems like forever from now. So getting some sense of what's a reasonable amount of time so that we know what are the deadlines that we need to be working toward to ask for the reviews and get the homework done.
absolutely, we'll build the rest of that timeline out for you. Some of it is statutory, but most of it is just based on how quickly can we get to a point where the developers and us are satisfied to move to the next part.
Well, and answering the questions that need to be answered in each one of those steps along the way. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Councilman Dodson, sir, you have the floor, then Vice Mayor Moody.
Yeah, I've got a few comments and a few questions. So it's sad that deferred maintenance has put us into this position. I'm hoping that we're planning to work around that philosophy. But as I see this development, we have more than one option. One is to say, take this one, or we also want to say, well, can this parcel be proposal developed at the same time as that one?
This one that we're in,
Yeah.
the only way we can develop this one is to get out of it.
Agreed.
Okay.
But that could be part of an overall proposal for this parcel too. So I'm not saying this, let's do it. I'm saying that philosophically, as an engineer, we always outline the options, and that those some other options remain to us, that we need to make sure that we've eliminated those options or at least considered them and talked them through.
Okay.
One of those options is that we wait for a proposal to develop this whole parcel with this move included in that proposal to help with the finances that would come along.
What can happen if at some point this don't work or we decide not to go with it and we actually do the process ourselves, if we choose to build that into the process, we can. But that's not the option that's before us right now.
That's before us right now. But I'd like for us to keep that in mind as we're going through some of this process. Also, the $86 million that is currently estimated, does that include the cost of moving the current or new equipment and personnel into the building too? Is this a turnkey?
Yeah.
So there would be an additional cost on top of the $86 million.
Furniture, fixtures, those kind of things are not included in that price.
Can we get, as we move along, can we, as Mr. Hugel has proposed, get some more of that detail?
It's my goal to bring you a full cost, not a partial cost. So you know the full cost of everything that's going to happen.
Thank you. That's all I have. That's simplified.
Vice Mayor Mooney.
Mr. Manager, you mentioned our financial advisors will be looking at the different options.
Yes, sir.
What other advisors are we going to have looking at this other than staff, city council?
We'll have some contracted engineers that's working with us on it. We have again, we talked about the financial advisors, but those will be the only two outside entities that will be involved.
So all the decision making will be within this body and staff, is that correct?
Yes. With those two advisors along the side that we talked about.
What other, also, what other non-solicited proposals has the city entered into that you're aware of?
We haven't entered into any that I'm aware of. We had one for a similar city hall that I'm aware of that did not make it to a finish line. But I'm not aware of.
That was referenced, I think, by Mr. Challenger in 2010. And that went through some of the process, and it got to the making the decision. Council nixed it.
Right. But that's the only one that I'm aware of. And if somebody knows something different, I'd be happy to research that for us.
Perhaps the courthouse, as I recall, that could have been.
As far as I know, that was not one.
You might look into that. And that's not a bad thing. That obviously, I think that turned out very well.
I'll take a look at that, absolutely.
Councilwoman Bryant.
I don't have any specific questions at this point, Mr. Carter, but I will just comment that I'm glad to see the transparency in this process. I'm glad that you're keeping us well informed of this is very preliminary, and there will be opportunities along the way for the public to be involved and for us to prepare questions for you. It's definitely an exciting part of being a part of this council, and I agree with the idea of us continuing that waterfront development with phase 1 and phase 2 and making this space something that we can all benefit from. So, thank you.
Councilman Tilley.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to see if my other council members they brought up some of the things that I did want to follow up on, just in preparation for our March 10th meeting. Mr. Carter, one of my questions also surround our independent financial advisors.
Yes.
And what other kind of independent third-party costs I guess, advisors will have on our side to verify the costs that come in, and throughout that process, if we enter into this agreement, that's something that's important, I think, that we consider in terms of cost transparency in this whole process. And then my other question, Vice Mayor Moody kind of hit on this question of what other, I guess, independent advisors will be involved. Being that it sounds like a lot of negotiation is going to happen with the PPEA, will we have Mr. Challenger representing us legally, or do we need like a special lawyer, legal advisor that's really, are you familiar with these negotiations? Mr. Challenger, I just wanted to know, is that something we would consider in this whole process as well?
Challenger, sir.
At this point, we're pretty comfortable where we are right now. Obviously, to the extent that we need assistance / another perspective, we will bring it on. We have the ability to bring on councils whenever we need it.
For specialized things, okay.
So we will definitely keep that in mind. But as of right now, at the stage that we are right now, we're comfortable where we are.
All right, thank you, Mr. Challenger.
And they've been a part of this from the very beginning.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Councilman Hugo, sir, you have the floor.
Okay, just one more question, Mr. Carter. Who's the project manager that's going to oversee this project?
Ultimately, it's me. But one of the things I'm looking at hiring is a program manager that kind of help walk through this process with us. That's that other set of eyes that we're talking about. So.
Yeah, so kind of coming back to where the Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Thomas were going. I mean, we don't do this every day. We collectively, your team and our team, and so having somebody sitting on top of it that can figure out, well, wait a minute, now we're getting into shallow water. We maybe need to bring somebody in to give us some independent advice that's got more experience doing this than our team. But the only way we're probably going to figure out that we're steaming into shallow waters, have somebody on the bridge saying we're steaming into shallow water. So, and you got a day job, so.
A night job too.
and this isn't it. Much as you might want it to be, this isn't it.
Yeah, but yes, we intend to have some additional eyes on the engineering side to let us know what it looks like, if it's structurally sound, what all those engineering pieces are. I have another group that's looking at all the financing pieces, make sure that those two things work well together. And like Mr. Challenger said, we need some legal advice beyond what we already have. We have the ability to bring that on too. So I think we're prepared for this.
So, what?
Sorry, one more question. Is it unusual that we didn't get an additional bid, or is that kind of part of the course, or were you expecting an additional bid?
We had some people sniffing around us,
Okay.
but I think some of the groups that they couldn't make the financing work for them.
Correct.
So I think that's where some of those guys decided not to bid, because had a couple groups that wanted to do a city hall and somebody else do a garage, or vice versa. But this is the only group that had a comprehensive proposal.
And so it may be preliminary to ask this, so if it is, we'll just move on, but our parking needs downtown indicate that we do need garage.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Very much so.
I know that we've talked about it here and there, so, and at different points leading all the way into the link, so.
Right. This is more than just parking for staff.
Right. Yeah, for the entire district. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Well, one of the things I want to just keep us in mind about this whole PPEA process, it is a process, and all of us, I would encourage all of us as council members to really start to educate ourselves about the process. When we go to things like NLC and other meetings, they usually have a whole group there that deals with PPEA across the country. And that's a good opportunity to really hear real life stories. I do know that other localities here in Hampton Roads have used the PPEA process to build city halls, to do that kind of work. And the thing we have to keep in mind, our budget is limited. Certainly, just to let everybody know, in the history of the city of Portsmouth, in all of the things that we have done, we have never defaulted on a loan. That's a good record. And our fund balance is strong. Our financial advisors gave us a good report. But I want to let everybody know that it's something that we really need to consider, because here's the deal, and I'll just give an example. How long have we waited to do this middle school? And the challenge we run into is, as a city, we may not have the bandwidth financially to take from our accounts and extend where we already are in terms of our threshold of what we can borrow. These kind of vehicles make sense. And that's why we're really looking at it. And by the way, everybody can't pull this off. So when you get an unsolicited bid, we didn't go out looking for it, but this is what they do. This is their business. So having them come to the table to really give us some real options, and yes, it's not going to be rubber stamped. We're going to go through a full vetting process, and as Mr. Carter said, the buck's going to stop with him and us. And we will have some options to move out. But when I look at this, and having been all over the country and listen how these things work, it'll take us another 30 years before we move City Hall, if we wait to be able to afford to do it that way. And right now we've got a building that our citizens can't get into, that's difficult for our employees to get into. I mean, just the other day we had a water main break down in the parking garage.
Yes.
Those are things that are not going to be resolved. And I get the fact that the maintenance won't be done, but at the end of the day, we are where we are.
Correct.
But we have to be responsible as leaders to put things in place for our citizens and for our city. And so I see this as a positive. I think that as we go through the process, we will learn more. And I'm looking forward to the continued re-engagement, but I think this is a good start. And by the way, I think we did have and Mr. Moody can correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the Renaissance a kind of public-private partnership?
It was. I don't think it fell under the...
No, it did not, the PPEA, but...
I don't think that existed at that time.
That's correct.
But that was a public-private partnership.
Right. So we have experience in the city of working in that capacity. So I just would encourage everybody, I know the language is new, get involved, learn about it, and ultimately I think we will come to the best decision as a group and as a city.
What I want to ask you guys to do is, if you have any questions about any part of this, please ask. We will do whatever research is necessary to get you a response to whatever you ask. And I will, like I normally do, provide you some talking points about this whole process, where we're going with this, why it's important. I will give you the right information.
And Mr. Carter, could you do that? I know there are a number of cities, Suffolk, for example, I think did their city hall through a PPEA. I'm not 100%, but I think they did. Could you get some data on the localities that have used this program to either enhance their city or do something that was beneficial in their city?
Absolutely.
I think that would be helpful, because then we could talk to local folks.
Okay. All right. Before I take my seat, we do have some members of the development team that's here. If they'd like to introduce themselves, the citizens know who Killer Rock's at. And if you guys want to introduce yourselves, sir.
James McHugh with Ripley Eagle Company.
Dan Heaple, Ripley Eagle Company.
Justin Ballard, MEB.
Trip Smith, MEB.
And Eric Kepler, MEB.
Thank you.
All right. There are no further inquiries. That ends my presentation. Turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we do have a need to go into closed session. So at this time, I would ask that Vice Mayor Moody please read the closed session motion.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation, open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, specifically regarding the City of Portsmouth versus Swenson Restaurant Group and all. Portsmouth Circuit Court Case Number CL 25001599-00.
Second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Hugo?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are enclosed. And we'll give a few minutes for everyone to exit the room and we'll go back to the
Okay. I hereby move that each council member certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and two, only such public business matters that were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened or heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting was convened.
Give a second. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Dr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Hugo?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tillage?
Yes.
Mayor Glover?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending tonight. That concludes our public work session and our closed meeting. This meeting is adjourned.